So hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 243 today of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions really do drive the show. Today's topic, well, it's about how to make the best use of artificial intelligence in 2024. And as the expansion of AI platforms and services seems to continue and go on and on and on, how should we look at embedding these kinds of tools into our everyday workflows? Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can find out much more about what we do in our channel. So do please give this video a like and subscribe to find out so much more about us. Ella is over in the social chat today, so do let her know your name and, of course, the city from where you are joining. And she's going to post some links in so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and, of course, for you to be able to add your own as well. If your question's selected, then, of course, your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show. So do get those in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. So let's jump in and meet our expert panel for today. Gira Goel is the founder and the CEO of Gira Group, where she leads a team who specializes in building uniform data protection, information security, compliance and risk programs from the ground up with her clients, working across industries. She's proud to have made the transition from being employed to setting up her own enterprise and building her business in this space. Welcome back to Level Up, Gira. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, Ian Clark rejoins today. He's the director of Fox IT Service Management, of course, in South Africa, well-respected contributor to the service management community across Africa, and I think it's fair to say worldwide. With a focus on improving productivity, Ian leads a team of professionals who engage with each client to improve outcomes. Welcome back to Level Up, Ian. Great to see you again.
Thank you, Nick. Looking forward to this show specifically. It's going to be a very eventful and dynamic conversation, I'm sure. Adrian is already kind of here, he's waiting, chomping at the bit.
Yeah, absolutely, aren't we all? Okay, Sachin Melwani rejoins today. Excuse me, everybody, today. I've got quite a sore throat today, so I apologize for my voice. He is, of course, a project systems, business transformation consultant who combines deep knowledge of project and product development life cycles and methods. With a strong background in IT, I think it's fair to say that he approaches change with a desire to help his clients adopt leading practice, and has been working in a fascinating space and industries, exploring their adoption of AI and helping them along that journey. Welcome back to Level Up, Sachin. Great to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. We're very brief today. Adrian Pyne is the director of Pyne Consulting, of course, and although partly retired, he's never been busier, I think. His recent book, Agile Beyond IT, brings together a lifetime of research and experience, and it was, in fact, a finalist in the Business Book Awards. So look, here's an unashamed plug for you, Adrian, on the book. It's very well written, I have to say, and a delight to be able to read. So I do really recommend it to everybody in the audience. Here's, of course, a regular contributor here on Level Up, and great to have you back again, Adrian. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Checks in the post. Yeah, I'm just a quiet, unassuming character. So I'm looking forward to engaging in a pleasant chat today.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. If you believe that, I believe anything. Mart Rovers is the president over at INTERPROM and a regular contributor, of course, to the Level Up community around the world. Across the US and Europe, INTERPROM are delivering coaching, advisory and training services to their clients, leveraging emerging technology and leading practice. And I think it's fair to say a great balance between the governance that's needed around AI and also, that sense of fail fast, get on with it, start to engage with it, get some value from it. Welcome back, Mark. Great to see you.
Nick, thanks so much for having me. Always a pleasure. And as you know, I usually start with a quote, and I thought I could pick from millions of quotes since we're talking about AI, but not so much. It's split picking, actually, but I found one from Eliezer Yudkowsky, who said, by far the greatest danger of AI is that people conclude too early that they understand it.
That is actually fantastic. I think we should. That's got legs on it. I think we could easily have that printed up on a mug and make it available to people. So thank you for that, Mart. Great opening to the show. Our question master for today, I'm delighted to say, is Suchitra Jacob. She joins from the wonderful city of Bangalore in southern India. Is it still in the heat wave that it was a couple of weeks ago, Suchitra?
Hi, Nick. Hello to the panelists and our viewers. Yes, unfortunately, it is really hot, continuing to stay hot. So yeah, it's the heat wave.
Okay, well, we hope that the questions are going to come in thick and fast from our audience. I can already see lots of people joining online today. There's a little bit of latency today as we're gone live around the world, but it's really wonderful to welcome our audience wherever you are joining from. Do say hi to Ella and the team who are online and make yourself known. Let us know the city from where you're joining. All right, excellent. Suchitra, on that note, it would be brilliant if we could have our first question for the panel, please.
Sure. So our first question is from someone who's named Artful Intelligence. Is AI about analytics, decisions, automation, or something else?
I think it's a religion now, actually. I think it's moved beyond a simple definition, but great question. And I don't know if we've got a bot asking the question or whether this is a real person. We'll discover that perhaps in due course. So panel, what are your thoughts? How would you go about, helping somebody understand the scope and the breadth of artificial intelligence? Gira, why don't you start us off?
Perfect. Thank you so much. And it's a great question, I would say. Having a topic on a Monday morning, first thing as artificial intelligence is fabulous conversation, makes the week go through very well. Coming back to the question, AI about analytics decision, it's all of the above and none of the above. How do you perceive it? Is what artificial intelligence is all about, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Gira. Great start for us. Mart, your thoughts, please, and then we're going to go to Ian.
The way I look at it, it's more the automation piece, and then not so much the automation that we're used to when it's about automating routine tasks. But for the first time in history, we're talking about automating non-routine tasks. And then maybe that's one of the reasons people are so worried about AI in some cases. As in, now it's going to impact my job or my work, in essence. I think it's a huge opportunity and to save a lot of time for these non-routine tasks. So that, to me, it's all about automation.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Mark. We might come back to that a little bit later on about how that whole area of process automation is accelerating hugely as a result of machine learning and AI. Ian, your thoughts, please, then we'll go to Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Another, like you said, very good question. All of the above from a user's perspective, it seems, but I see it more as it's almost like a productivity tool. I know other people are looking at it from a knowledge-based decision-making perspective. It just seems to be embedded everywhere. I mean, maybe the question to think about is, what is it not used for? Or what is it not a good idea to, look at AI for? That's my 10 cents, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely right. It seems to be now invasive. Fully invasive in the sense that it is encroaching upon so many different disciplines, so many different areas. And, government, whether it be national or state government, is scrambling a little to figure out whether or not their regulatory frameworks and their laws are actually keeping pace with the rate at which these sorts of services are indeed developing. Adrian, your thoughts then, please, on the nature of AI.
Well, everything that's been said so far, doubtless. I also loved the quote that Mart started with, because that almost sort of says it for me. In relation to the project profession that I'm coming from, I'm seeing a lot of use of AI in two ways. One, for analytics, to be looking at performance trends and doing that kind of automatically, increasingly on very, very major projects where there's a huge amount of data, but also increasingly around the generative AI to be making things like communication with stakeholders more, I was going to say more creative, but I'll probably come back to that because I don't actually believe that AI is creative, not yet anyway. But I'm sort of seeing its use in a number of areas.
Yeah, absolutely right. I want to kind of share a little bit of the past with us to shed some light on the current state of AI, if you like. I was a great fan of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series that was on the radio when I was young. And there was a little creature that helped with translation, and it would live inside people's ears, I think, from memory. And it was called the Babel fish. And in Douglas Adams' writing, he imagined this fish being able to translate between any language in real time and provide the host, if you like. It was a symbiotic relationship, provide the host with a range of services to help them communicate with different creatures from all over the universe. And I do see AI a little bit like that. It's certainly its early adoption has been hugely helpful in the areas of translation and bringing people together and allowing people through large language models to be able to interface with computers in a much more naturalistic style. So one thing it's doing is Douglas Adams' prediction. It's not quite living in people's ears, but it's probably wearable now. It's probably a set of glasses that you can buy that have AI built into them to help you. And as an Englishman abroad, how wonderful is that going to be for my language skills when I'm trying to order a meal in a restaurant? Actually, yes, Ian, you're right. It could be a scary thing. All right, very good. Suchitra, help us out, please. Let's take our next question for the panel, and then we'll go across to social with a bit of a shout out.
The next question is from Beverly. Is there an easy way to explain what is different about AI in 2024 compared with 2023?
Essentially, it's a really good question because the pace of change is quite remarkable. One of the areas that I've been following is in generative AI around creating video content. And I would say that it is far more believable now. In a year, less than a year, it's gone from being obviously fake to scarily real. And in fact, the challenge now is being able to spot what is real versus what is just imagined. Adrian, your thoughts. What is the biggest difference that you've observed in AI?
What you just said. In addition to that, there's a lot more of it about, obviously. And the tools are better. Unfortunately, there's still the problem with data is there's still an awful lot of appalling data out there, and this has been the same. I mean, I've been involved with IT systems for a few decades, and the problem with them, one of the problems with them has always been rubbish in, rubbish out, and that's still very much true of AI platforms, of most AI platforms, and that's going to be an increasing challenge. There's more of an awareness of the challenges, but it's still seen as the big sexy thing by very many senior leaders, and they don't understand it.
It's really hard, I think, for people in a leadership position, to be able to kind of see the wood for the trees, because we've got this dichotomy all of the time, haven't we, between safeguarding the data and the privacy and the systems and the services of an organization, and at the same time pressing ahead with innovation. And in the era of AI, I think whilst there's huge opportunity, there's also quite a lot of risk associated with it as well. So I agree with you there, Adrian, entirely. Ira, your thoughts, please, and then we're going to go to Ian.
Thank you, Nick. I agree with what Adrian said, and you started with and Ian mentioned as well. But I want to add a little bit more on the transition side of how things have changed in previous years to what we are seeing now, or what's going to happen, is the fact that previously it was more used in analytics, and that will, of course, increase more and more and more as we have more data. But now we are already starting to see in the face, like in the images and how we generate images today, or the video content today. With Adobe Firefly and Express and Canvas, they all are using those kind of attributes to enhance and make it more user-friendly to create images, as opposed to being a photographer or a creative person. Thirdly, we are also starting to see the use of AI in the compliance space as well. I come from compliance background, and I come from cybersecurity data protection background. So for me, using AI to combat the challenges that we see in this space is also starting quite a bit. But it comes back to, as Adrian said perfectly, rubbish in, rubbish out. The quality of the data becomes a huge aspect in how the AI is being used, or what it will give us as an output. And finally, just to wrap what I'm saying here is the issue also becomes is the race the organizations, the companies have today is, AI is a big thing today. We can capture that market. And as you rightly put, they do not understand what AI is. It was under the wraps in previous years with machine learning, and today it's a big word. But did they understand machine learning is also AI? That's a question mark that I leave with.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's quite interesting, isn't it? I do think that one of the things that's happened in 2024 is more people are reading more privacy policies on the service providers of AI-driven services than ever before, and scouring them to see where in the world is my data going? What are you doing with it? Why are you saying you're going to be sharing this with other people? So it's a kind of, buyer beware, except of course, when it's free, you imagine that you're not buying anything. Actually, do you know what? If it's free, then that button is probably not for you. That button is actually probably for the provider, because they're doing all kinds of stuff with your data. Thank you very much, Ira. Great answer. Ian, your thoughts? Then we're going to go to Mart.
Yeah, I think I just want to echo Ira's kind of sentiments. I think a year ago, it was relatively new. People were still trying to figure out what it is, and they still are to a large extent. It's permeated itself into every facet of personal and business lives. I mean, I was looking the other day of creating some videos for Fox, and I go to InVideo AI, type in a little text, and then off it goes and creates me a 2-minute video on the benefits of Fox IT. I mean, it's incredible what it can actually do. My biggest feel for this year and going forward is regulation. I know, Ira, that's definitely your area of expertise, but I see it's like a free for all in the States, and then the EU are putting acts out and legislation. Maybe on this side of the world, there'll be lots of legislation that people will ignore. So it's the legislative side that fascinates me. I think that's where it's going to end up going, in the short term.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Mart, your thoughts, then we'll go to Sachin.
I fully echo what has been said so far. Totally on board with everything. I want to add to that the adoption rate in the academic world, in schools, universities, is increasing enormously, to the extent where we now see YouTube videos of a little kid asking Alexa, what is the equation of XYZ, whispering, and Alexa whispers back the answer. I mean, that's folks do their homework these days. And that's, of course, not a nice way of saying the adoption is increasing. But yeah.
Yeah, it is very hard for educators because the human evolution is based on failure, really, if we think about it. Okay, you have to fail often, and then you get a breakthrough, and then the breakthrough sometimes is adopted by other people, sometimes not, and these ideas and innovations are lost, throughout history. And then reinvented again later on and more broadly adopted and so on. So I do think that there's a real challenge for young people through in the era of AI to make sure that they themselves are given opportunities where they feel comfortable with failure. Failing fast and often is actually a brilliant way to learn, provided that you're in a supportive environment. If you're in an environment where failure is punished constantly, then the desire to fake it before you make it becomes ever stronger. So thank you, Mart. Totally agree with that. Sachin, your thoughts on this?
I think the one thing which needs to be mentioned is that the EU did introduce the Artificial Intelligence Act at the tail end of December 2023. So in the same way with Brexit, you have different types of GDPR policies between the UK and EU. At a practical level, companies are having to create their own artificial intelligence policy. So one of the things, if you do work in Europe and soon in the US, is you will have to come up with your own GDPR/AI policy going forward. The other thing, just to mention practically, is that I think the Stanford University in California came up with the Artificial Intelligence Index report in April, and it showed that basically AI was outperforming humans across many of the benchmarks in terms of, like, for example, mathematics, common sense reasoning. So there is, whereas I was talking about that most of the AI that people were talking about was machine learning, is now progressing to that higher level of reasoning. So that's just two things to bear in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. We'll try and find a link to that Stanford University index for folks, and we'll put that up in the social chat online so that you can look that up. It is a fascinating and very rapidly evolving landscape for us all to be able to try and navigate our way across. Let's jump over to social then, see who our production team are online. Of course, if you're online today and you're putting in questions, then you're driving the show, and we really appreciate that. Idara rejoins today, a strong supporter of Level Up. She's in Abuja in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining from West Africa. Great to have you online, Idara. I can already see your contribution in the social chat, so that's really great. And Deepti joins today from Bangalore in India. A new colleague recently joined APMG, working alongside Suchitra and other members of the APMG team based in Bangalore. So welcome, great to see you online today. Boleslaw rejoins from Poland. Great to have you online today. PMI's Infinity, which is the project manager's AI-powered co-pilot. Now, there are some other ones as well. There's one called Marvin. I think we might try and find a link to that, or Adrian and Ian may know a little bit more about that, and might ask them in a few moments just about Marvin. But these sorts of large language models, which are trained on specific data, verified data, rather than just the kind of open data that can produce hallucinations, are actually jolly useful tools for people, especially as bodies of knowledge seems to get bigger. If there was one project management group that I would think that really needs it, the PMI body of knowledge is quite significant, isn't it? It's slightly broader than the Encyclopedia Britannica now. So I think that it's a good idea to have some tools and techniques to be able to explore those. And I think we might have one more link to kind of go to. And Cindy joins today, of course, a regular contributor, both online and also in person now, as a panelist from Johannesburg. So really great to have you online today. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much indeed, TD. So let's move on. We'll take our next question for the panel, please. Suchitra.
Our next question is from Cindy Hancock. How can AI be used to assess and measure the effectiveness of learning programs, and how reliable are these assessments?
Well, this is a really interesting area, isn't it? Can AI actually be used to help benchmark, if you like, and measure things? In this case, the effectiveness of learning programs. There are, of course, lots of empirical evidence from different academics around the world as how you go about measuring human learning at different stages of our development. And I guess that some of that thinking is now being applied into the world of AI. Ian, why don't you start us off with your thoughts?
Yeah, okay. It's a very good question, Cindy. Hello, welcome back. I've actually seen very recently a company who did some root cause analysis training in the world of service management, trying to figure out ways to identify various causes of repeat incidents or issues that are occurring in the environment, and to try and remove them. And a lot of the service management tools, like many tools or systems, have got AI built into the tool. And they use that AI to actually monitor after the training how people were applying the new practices that they had learned. So it's more of an analytical way to look at, are we finding cause quicker? Are they carrying out steps in the correct sequences? Obviously making sure that they, use the tool in the correct way. And that's how they were using, kind of AI/analytics to try and show that people's behavior had changed after training. It's just a kind of a real life thing that I saw a few weeks ago in a particular company that made me, just think based on Cindy's question.
Yeah, very interesting. And this kind of thing, we're often asked to prove that we are a human and not a robot on different websites, aren't we? And there's a variety of things. I do wonder if it's sponsored by the National Traffic Light Manufacturing Association of North America or something, just because there seem to be an awful lot of traffic lights involved. So thank you, whoever thought of that one. But nonetheless, being able to spot patterns and the absence of patterns in human behavior is something that is detectable. You're absolutely right, and can be used, therefore, to build up quite sophisticated models of what you would think people would be able to apply in real life and the time period over which they may do so. So thank you very much, Ian. Thank you for picking that one up. Ira, your thoughts, and then we're going to go to Adrian.
Yeah, one thing that pops in my mind quite a bit, and thanks to COVID, I would say, is we are virtual like we are having today. So I just am assuming that you are analyzing behind the scenes the learning patterns and whether this session is effective or not. And that's essentially what the application question is all about. So when we are recording a session, and if the technology, I'm sure Teams, Zooms, all have the AI plugins for that purpose, and it can record and assess based on the content that is being presented, what are the expressions and emotional intelligence that we are representing. Very similar to what we have in a real life classroom as a body language scenario. I mean, you can also hear people thinking. That's the energy that we go with. But in virtual world, that energy is not there in a same way. And that's what these tools allow us to do that. And the technology allows us to do that. And that's where the value comes in. I've seen that happening in academic area for now, but I've not seen that being incorporated in the technology which corporations use, where you have a meeting and then it generates the analysis of how effective that assessment is, or your classroom or meeting has been. So that's the big part of that conversation. Second part is, in the corporate world, is we have to do mandatory trainings, annual trainings, live training. And since that technology hasn't been incorporated as that, I think there is an opportunity for somebody to pick that up and assess that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think just a shout out really to anybody that's involved in governance training of any kind, over many years, regulators have set a frequency for renewal of that kind of training, but the content doesn't keep pace with the appetite of the learner. So the content is still, historically, it's aging rapidly, people. So if you're talking about whether it's anti-money laundering or you're talking about, cybersecurity stuff, learn from some of the best. So there are some amazing creative people. Actually, Cindy Hancock is one of them herself. She's an amazing instructional designer. She builds great learning content. So learn from some of the best and revisit that content, which is now creaking at the seams a little bit. If you haven't touched your content for 5 years, chances are your audience are already underwhelmed by it. It really does need refreshing. Thank you very much indeed, Ira. Great point. And let's go, please, if we can, to Adrian.
Yeah, I was just reminded, I had lunch with a colleague of mine several weeks ago in London who's at University College London, very good university. And he was telling me actually about how AI is starting to be tentatively used. They're looking at it for building quite literally student assessments of student papers, plus also to, again, that horrible word, create assessment schemes, marking schemes. I think they're quite wary of it because there have been some examples, obviously, of the use of AI in the academic space, which have ventured into human behavior areas. And as soon as you start doing that, you've got to take account of different cultural backgrounds and everything else, but be aware of cultural bias and all of that. So I think they're being fairly cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Now, Adrian, you were nodding a little bit earlier, so I'm going to stay with you if I can, just to talk about Marvin. Could you help just expand a little bit what Marvin is in relation to project management?
Yeah, I think it grew out of frustration with certain other platforms that really had an awful lot of nonsense in them in relation to project management. And you asked it a question, you got back stuff which was just plain wrong. So Marvin is collaboration between groups like the Agile Business Consortium, Praxis Framework, others, that is only putting in verified content, including my wonderful book, of course. So from people like Agile Business Consortium. So any of the content in there has been validated and verified in some way. And it's not the only, but it's to me, it's one of the best ones. If you really, if you want to go somewhere and ask about different aspects of project management, it's probably one of the most reliable sources.
I think this is the interesting thing, isn't it? Because, 10 years ago or so, people would smile if you referenced Wikipedia, given that it was, able to be, you could write things in there and then you had to wait for the peer review and so on to be able to moderate that content. Now, over time, of course, that does knock all of the sharp edges off things and it becomes more and more of a suitable source of reference. But right now, the edges on generative AI models are not knocked off. And so you need to have real confidence, super confidence in the content that it's serving you back. And if you are asking because your own knowledge base is insufficient, buyer beware. If you're asking a technical question and you don't have the technical background to be able to determine whether the answer is realistic or not, that's a tricky situation. And this is where I think training LLMs in specific areas with authentic content, content which has been underwritten by somebody, is actually a really, really important step forward. Mart, your thoughts on this, please?
Yeah, just quickly, I thought Adrian was going to take away my answer as in the garbage in, garbage out that he was referring to earlier. That's what we're looking at with these assessments, right? If we don't have enough data points, then what's the result of these assessments? Let's start there. It's so basic in essence. So I'll be very careful with these assessments, since whatever you put in there is maybe what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely right. And one of the things that APMG International does do a great deal, and across actually APM Group, is to consistently benchmark. So I do think if you have an interest in this area and you're looking for that kind of validation, then just visit the APM Group website. We'll put a link in the chat for everybody for that, and start that journey off, because there's an amazing collection of communities from all over the world, all different industries and disciplines and so on. So in that base of professionals, there's going to be somebody who can, work with us to work with you to get that accreditation done, that validation, if you like, of the approach done and properly benchmarked for you. So do get in touch. Just visit apmg.com for that service and explore along those lines. Excellent. Great question, Cindy. Thank you so much for posting it today. And on that note, Suchitra, let's press on. We'll take our next question to the panel, please.
Question from Arun Singh. Do you think we are in a situation where the AI should be able to predict a call, then proactively address the customer's pain points in service management?
Well, this kind of predictive analytics is such an important part, isn't it? It's already here in many ways. I think we've got an open audio channel somewhere, folks. So I'm just going to give an opportunity for everybody to mute themselves. Thank you. And then we'll move on. Thank you very much indeed. It's quite all right. I think it's an audio routing issue that somebody had, one of the panelists had. So predictive AI then, and building that in. Sachin, why don't we come to you first?
Yes, I have to hold my hand up and say I think I might have been the guilty party in terms of the audio. In terms of the question, we are already there. You can use current natural language processing techniques in order to, for example, have like a chatbot which is monitoring passively your email communication, and then creating like a severity and sensitivity heat map. So the technology is already there. Oracle has out of the box kind of applications that you can implement and integrate that with, for example, other smart construction platform tools such as anomaly detection, text recognition, those type of things, and speech recognition services. What I think the more interesting question is about the whole corporate governance policy dimension to this. So, for example, the technology is there to monitor, for example, keywords being used in emails such as contract breach, and then create a ping directly to like a commercial manager saying there's an emerging problem which is not in the risk register between these two parties. So that is already there. But how do you get your employees' consent that you're monitoring their emails, and how is that active engagement and contract done, social contract done with your staff? I think that's the more interesting question. Yeah.
I agree with that. I think ethically, these tools can very quickly move from a productivity aid. Oh, that's really brilliant, because that allows us to manage complexity in an effective and efficient way. And then it crosses a line suddenly, and it becomes so invasive that individuals are kind of thinking, well, there's now a set of keywords that I won't use anymore in order to be able to describe and interact with others. So it's quite interesting, isn't it, how these sorts of things do evolve. And I love, Sachin, that phrase that you were using, that social contract. How do you build the buy-in with everybody, your employees, your value chain of partners that you're working with outside of your organization? How do you bring everybody together to a common understanding? Thank you, Sachin. Great advice there. Ian, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think, we were saying it's largely there as well. But it's a good question, Aaron, in terms of things like predictive dialers already have existed for several years that, you get those mildly irritating calls from call centers, because they know that at this time of the day, they're monitoring and they have all the data about you. It's the best time to try and get you to talk about XYZ with you. In the world of service management, there are monitoring tools that are set up and orchestrated around various data points and events happening in IT networks and on IT systems to almost predict that there's going to be an issue coming up fairly shortly if somebody doesn't do something. So yeah, I think they are largely there. I hope AI will be used in a useful, ethical way, as Sachin was mentioning now, to enhance that capability to be truly, more and more proactive.
Absolutely
early days, I think.
It is very early days. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Ian. Thank you so much indeed. And Ira, final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I actually would want to take a step back here. And, in a way, I agree with most everybody. And I apologize, Adrian, I'm going to pick on agile here. I think that is one of the biggest challenges, is people don't understand what agile is. It doesn't mean that you don't capture the requirements properly. It doesn't mean that you don't go back to the issues and bugs that have been raised. So in a rush to move to the next best thing, next feature, the companies, the organizations don't revisit what they have skipped in the first place because they want to be agile, fast, quick, and so forth. And I think that's where the customer pain point comes in a service management industry, is you already have tools and services to capture the logs, assess the logs, like SIEM and so many other technologies that haven't been existing for so long now that are being used. And I think putting the right matrix in there, putting the right data points that you want to capture, maybe go back and revisit it as well to see, are they really working, is why I would call a customer service to address an issue. Because something is very obvious that isn't working. Or at some place an integration testing has failed and I've released a feature that has broken something that was working previously. And so I think we need to step back and take a look at it from a perspective that is already existing, instead of thinking that AI is going to solve all the problems.
You're absolutely right. I think this whole area of, computers talking to computers is a fascinating one. We've got a really nice comment in the chat, actually, from Oliver. If we can go to panel, TD, that would be brilliant, and just bring that up on screen. Oliver Stein's been kind of following along, and he kind of puts forward this, dystopian tautology, if I can put those two words together in one sentence, saying that, do you think that what do you think the future would really look like, though, with AI talking to AI without the human involved at all? So can you imagine AI predicting what my client, my human, is going to have a problem tomorrow on, posting that into a service management product, and the service management predicting what the answer is going to be. And the two AI models can just thrash it out themselves, whilst the service delivery manager and the customer go and have a coffee together and let the computers figure it out. So there you go. So there's a little future for you. Whether it's good or not, I don't know. Just feel like one of those movies, doesn't it? Really? It's Adrian, was it the Terminator series? Kind of thinking, oh, that's right. Yes. The Terminator series, doesn't it? Okay. Well, we will hopefully be back. But before we finish today, we've got time for a couple of questions still, if we're really hurry. So, Suchitra, next question, please.
A question from Deepthi. What opportunities would AI present for creativity and innovation, as the responses would be based on previous data?
This is interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Can you be genuinely creative if you're always building on the past? Ira, your thoughts, please.
Actually, this is an amazing question. And I would bring in a point here, which I was in a conference last year, and an innovator was was a keynote speaker. And they actually created clothing based on AI. And the interesting part was they're working with MIT Innovation Labs to set up right kind of fabric, right kind of data that can be analyzed to create the fabric and the clothes in the first place. So the way it is when you walk into the, let's say, a mall or an airport, the cameras can identify that I am Gira Goel. But if I'm wearing that clothing, it will not be able to identify me. And it will identify what is the data that exists in that clothing. So that is one of the creative, innovative opportunities that I saw was quite interesting, that takes care of the PII, the sensitive data, the identification and over-identification that the governments collect, and the phobia that people have most of the time in that sense. And on the contrary, they will post their photos on Facebook and such. So not going there, but yeah, that was quite good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fascinating. Adrian, your thoughts, then we'll go to Ian.
Well, I guess it comes down to what creativity is, and without getting too existentialist about or just philosophical about it. I mean, any innovation that humanity does is inevitably influenced by something that has gone before. So you can't just say that just because data is out there somewhere, that AI can't use it to create something. But there's a difference, I think, and how we spot it, I'm not competent to say. But what I can, obviously observe is that, for example, writers, creators of music are already very worried that, quotes there, customers, the corporate customers, are going to be wanting to use much cheaper AI than pay writers for new content, or musicians and for new content as well. And as someone who's a grumpy old guy that doesn't believe that there's much good new music anymore, and it was much better in the 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. What can I say? It's what is creativity?
Well, indeed, there's a lovely quiz if you're in the UK, and I think it may be available outside of the UK, but I really recommend it. Go to BBC Bitesize, look up quizzes, and have a little go at is it the Bard or Beyonce? They've done a fantastic quiz where you have to guess whether or not this phrase is written by William Shakespeare, or alternatively are just some lyrics from a Beyonce song. And actually, it's quite a challenging quiz. So do have a little look at that and see what your thoughts are. Ian, final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, final thing from me, just very quickly. The World Economic Forum demand skills to 2027, creative and analytical thinking, number one. Why that is the case is an interesting question. There's a lot of kind of research out there that I've read that sort of, because AI is based on historical data and data points, that to be truly innovative, create something truly new, it struggles or cannot do. We can debate that at length, but that's the kind of thinking behind why it's potentially one of the top sought after skills going forward in the future. I thought it was an interesting piece of research, actually.
Fascinating. Thank you very much indeed, Ian. Very good. Well, look, time's working against us. Suchitra, I think we'll take our final question to the panel, please.
Our final question is from Charlotte. What AI tools would the panel recommend that they're using themselves?
Okay, so here's some personal recommendations, and you can go for those embedded tools and so on, all of the way through to ones which are explicitly labeled. and separate from your day-to-day technology that you might be using. Mart, why don't you start us off and then we'll go to Era.
Thank you for having me first, because I knew somebody else was going to say the same thing. ChatGPT definitely does a lot. Use it, keep using it, learn, use how to use it better and better and better. The first time you may be impressed, but the more you use it, the more you will be impressed. But then again, be mindful, because the garbage in, garbage out also applies there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really interesting prompt developments that you can now use, and asking for the data back as a table, formatting the data for you, and these kinds of things is often very, very useful if you're looking to take that information and force it into a different presentation layer at any rate. So thank you very much indeed. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mart. Era, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Adrian.
Yeah, so I do use quite a bit, and I do test some of the AI tools as well, ChatGPT, Copilot, and I sometimes do a comparison of the same content between the two. So sometimes I like one over the other just because of the way the output comes out from them. Interesting one that most recently I've explored a little bit is the AI assistant on Adobe Reader, because we all have legislations of 500 pages or books of 500 pages, and it's sometimes time is of an essence. So I try to use that to do a synopsis and analyze and then go more in depth that way. That's one of the approaches. I've also used others like Designer, Firefly, Express, depending on what I am doing, just for fun as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Ian, next, please.
Yeah, very quickly, in-video AI is the one I've been playing around with lately. The AI that's built into Canva. The reason I'm doing that is, the nature of social media and marketing seems to be heading towards obviously more visual based to attract audiences. So I'm heavily looking into tools to help me create, good content, for those kind of platforms from a business perspective, primarily.
Thank you so much indeed. Adrian, your thoughts, please, and then Sachin.
Well, I'm going to mention Marvin again for anyone who's in the project professional or interested. So that's one I've had some involvement in, and B, use a great deal. I do also, because I'm writing and researching on business agility at the moment, I do use both Copilot and ChatGPT, and like Era, I kind of almost play them off against each other. But the way I'm using them is quite cynically, if you like, because I'm a bit mistrustful of what I'm finding. But I'm using them to give me, shall we say, pointers to where I then need to go and do more deep dives. So I'm using them to try and save myself some time, but I'm being very, very cagey about the information that's coming out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I use OpenAI a great deal, and it helps me write better code, better scripts. So I put in a script which almost works and doesn't, and then I say, can you fix this? And it fixes it, and it's fantastic. And you can learn so much by doing that kind of thing. So you don't have to ask all of the time with nothing and say, write me a script that does X. You can actually put in a script that does most of it, but doesn't quite do all of it, and then say, please improve this, make it more efficient, make it more effective, make it more performant, whatever the kind of the area that you want. And it really does help improve technically what you're doing. So I agree with that. Thank you very much indeed, Adrian. Sachin, your thoughts, please.
Just to step back, I would first try to identify the problems that you're trying to solve, whether it's predicting likely categories, predicting numerical values, identifying usual cases, because that would identify the machine learning tool set that you need to focus on. Usually, we've been talking about machine learning as one amorphous kind of tool set, but there's actually different machine learning techniques that you can employ. For example, decision tree, random forest, a priori. Practically, one thing which you could also do, speaking as like an Oracle partner, is that you could get a free tier license with Oracle, and then create your own environment, and there you can then use practically tool sets such as speech recognition, text recognition, um, digital assistant, natural language processing, and try it out in a virtual environment, with your real life project data. So if you are in the project environment, Marvin is a great resource, incredibly useful. But then in terms of like testing out some of these natural language programming, you can do that via a free tier license. So do check that out.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Some great recommendations there. Ira, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, so thank you. Just considering the time here, I want to add one final thing, and that is to point out that if you're using intellectual property or your own business information into ChatGPT, that can lead to some other things that you don't want to have, like data breaches or disclosures and such. So be very careful. Thank you, Nick, on pointing that you put scripts in there, because that is what triggered this thought, is be very careful of what you put. Do not put the copyright-ish data or something that's under confidentiality.
Yeah, it's really, really important. And just for clarification for everybody, the only scripts that I put in are usually to do with they're anonymized, if that makes sense. So there's no links to real data sources or anything like that in them. But we need to be mindful all of the time, of where is this conversation going? You would not be comfortable sitting on a train next to somebody discussing their client's infrastructure, or a holding an appraisal meeting on a telephone next to you. You would feel uncomfortable with that. So it's time to feel less comfortable, people, with the anonymous world of a keyboard and a mouse. Think about where that data is going. Great point, Ira. Very well made. Thank you very much indeed. Just to help you with all of that, APMG does have a range of qualifications and certifications now, which are addressing this kind of area. And one of them's on the screen right now. It's all about thinking about using AI in anger. All right. So do have a little look at that and consider, is that something that could be worthy for yourself? I would like to share with you also, kind of personally on the creative side, using a generative AI product. I use it. It's on a platform called Discord, and it's prompt based. So from that point of view, it's very easy to use. You do need to learn some of the syntax of the prompts, but it also is available, fascinatingly, as a printed magazine with all of the different images that the creators have produced. And it's printed, I have to say, in very high quality ink and in very high quality paper stock, so that you get a really good idea of how the creator has gone about it. Now, clearly things like this, the snow leopard and the young lady, well, I sincerely hope they're not doing this at home. You wouldn't do that with a real model, would you? So there are some things genuinely that you can do with this kind of generative AI that you would not be able to do that easily. Apologies, I'm not showing these images in the best possible way, but I just wanted to share with you just how far this kind of image generative AI type model has come. There is now amazing texture. There is fantastic nuance, I would say, okay, in the images that are being generated. And when you look at them, you kind of think, goodness me, it's tricky to tell if that was something that somebody spent hundreds of hours on, or hundreds of hours on with an AI engine helping them along the way. Tricky to say. All right, excellent. Well, thank you very much indeed, panel. What an interesting show we've had today. So we're going to get our closing remarks from everybody. We're slightly over time, but let's walk through the panel if we can. Ian, your reflections on today, please.
Yeah, very interesting discussions as always, Nick. Yeah, I think for me, I'm very fascinated with where the regulation's going to go with regards to AI. So I'll be watching that space, very closely. But yeah, as always, a polished show and extremely interesting discussion points from all the panelists. Hope the viewers enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm sure that they have done. It's self-evident in the chat. So thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Jedev, for your comment around the interesting session today. Completely agree with you. Adrian, your thoughts, please, and then Sachin.
Coming from, again, the project profession, I've never believed in data-led projects. People lead and deliver projects. So for AI has got to play a supporting role primarily, and we must be very wary and careful about where we let it lead and make decisions.
Absolutely right. Thank
very
you very
open
much.
to abuse.
Very, very good point. So let's be cautious, people. Sachin and then Mart.
So just starting off practically, I think organizations should be talking about an AI Bill of Rights or an AI charter for themselves, which combines different aspects such as data privacy, creating an employee contract with respect to how they monitor their employees, etc. So there is a corporate government side of things. One question which we didn't kind of get to was talking about the multi-back and how AI can increase entropy to a disordered state, and I think that was the question which Oliver raised and which Nick talked about. To be quite honest, that actually can be seen in terms of financial trading. So we can look at that as well.
Yeah, thank you. We will carry over some of the questions that we didn't get to into a future episode. There will be another AI episode coming up in the schedule over the summer, actually, I think. Mart, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Gira.
Great show indeed. Lots of great questions, and I think another informative one, Nick. Sybil Sage of the New York Times, she once said something about the availability and accessibility of AI. It's at our fingertips right now. It's within reach for so many, right? But she said someone on TV only has to say Alexa, and then she lights up. It's right there available. She goes on. She says she's always ready for action. The perfect woman never says not tonight, dear.
Okay. Well, I think you may have added to the confusion of several nations around the world by mentioning the A word there out loud. So apologies to everybody whose digital assistants, and others are available, by the way, have suddenly sprung into action. But thank you, Mart. Appreciate that. And Gira, your thoughts, please. And then we'll hear from Suchitra.
Thank you, Nick. And thank you, everyone. This is an amazing session. I would just want to highlight the fact we touched upon corporations, businesses, how we do things professionally or should be doing things in terms of AI. But think of yourself as an individual and in your own personal life, because in today's world, they are interlinked. Your personal and professional life is no longer separate. It's part and parcel of each other. So what we do in personal life, how we use AI in personal life, has implications on your professional life and vice versa. So be mindful of the technology you use, or we all use, myself included, and we're guilty of taking shortcuts there and just not reading the privacy policy, doing a checkbox just because we are pressed on time. So be mindful of the use of the technology that we have today, including your smart fridge or Samsung TV or whatever that may be. Everything has AI today.
Absolutely right. I often think, I'm not sure what that network port on the back of a smart TV is for. It's probably for the platform provider. It's probably not for you. Okay, you're probably better off browsing the internet on other devices. Just a thought for you. Suchitra, an interesting discussion today, and some really great questions and commentary actually from the audience around the world as well.
Yes, Nick, it definitely has been very interesting. And like you mentioned, we have a lot of questions which we have yet to answer. So we will pick this topic again in the next few months.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Now, Suchitra has to rush off for another appointment in a moment, but I would like to thank everybody online as our producers for your excellent questions today. Thank you very much indeed. And do consider linking up with the panel on the LinkedIn platform. You can connect to the panel. We're very easy to find. Just go to apmginternational.com, look for the events page, and then you'll find a little button that links you through to every panelist's LinkedIn profile. So do take us up on that offer. We'd be delighted to work with you. Over on our website, of course, you can also search for answers to more than 2,300 questions that have been previously put to panelists on Level Up and our other shows that we host. It's totally free of charge, and it connects you with experts from all over the world. Don't forget, you may also listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. Just search for Level Up Your Career APMG International, and you'll find us pretty easily. Looking ahead, on Friday, the 3rd of May at 2 p.m. UK time, we're in British summertime now, we dive into how to manage agile projects. Now, Monday the 6th here is a public holiday, so there won't be a Level Up next Monday the 6th. So we'll be back on Friday, the 10th of May, again at 2 p.m. UK time, with a show all about big data and why it is so critically important in 2024. Please head over to the YouTube channel. Do give the video a like and consider subscribing. It really does help other people to discover the content. And just write to us and ask us, and we will, of course, send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.